Hello everyone, thanks for joining us today for our webinar. Today we're going to discuss document management relating to finance and accounts, but more specifically we're going to look at automating the accounts payable workflow. I'm Chris, I'm an account manager here at AMS, and I'm joined by my colleague Damien as well. So what are we hoping to cover today? Well, we'll start off with a quick introduction to AMS, who we are and how we fit into the picture. And then we'll introduce you to DOCU, who are a partner of ours, and they're a German document management manufacturer. We'll then go through an example accounts payable process and any particular issues or challenges that our customers tend to face when dealing with these traditional accounts payable processes. Then what I'd love to do is just do a quick online poll and just get your thoughts on what you consider to be your biggest pains or your issues with. It could be your accounts payable process, or it could be a process that you know within your team or within your department. Damien will then give you a demonstration of the software. I'll then come back and we'll talk about the benefits that our customers see after they've implemented DOCU, and then we'll touch on some of the next steps. So if you did want to look at a project like this with us, how we tend to work with our customers. I'll then finish up with a summary and we'll go through any questions and answers that we have. Which reminds me, actually, there is a dialog box probably on your right hand side, and at the bottom there you'll be able to type in any questions, and we'll try and get to as many of those at the end as we can. In addition, from that dialog box you can also make your screen full screen mode, which may help a bit later on when Damien takes us through the demo. Okay, so about AMS and DOCU. Well, we've been around since 1992, and we're actually a gold partner of DOCU. Now, DOCU are a big German document management manufacturer. Now, we have over 2,000 customers throughout the world, and we work in a wide range of industry sectors, from finance to the public sector, to education, to healthcare and manufacturing. Now, we carry out all of our pre- and post-sale support here at AMS, based in Bournemouth. We also carry out development services and work on bespoke projects. Now, DOCU have been around since 1988, and they really were one of the first companies to introduce electronic document management to the market. They have over 14,000 installations and over 125,000 users. So as you can see by some of the stats on that page, they're quite a global company. So what is DOCU? Well, I suppose in summary, DOCU is a comprehensive document management solution with a wide range of modules that are available for almost all requirements that we come across. Now, as you'll see from some of the departments there, we do tend to work quite well in departments like finance, in accounts, HR, sales, for example. But realistically, any department with a document-driven process can take advantage of the software and its functionality. Now, the subject of document management is very, very vast. So today, as we've already mentioned, we're really going to focus on finance and accounts, but quite specifically the accounts payable process. So what I'm going to do now is quickly take you through an example accounts payable process. Now, I do appreciate that this is quite basic and you've probably got a few more levels in your own process, and you probably think this is extremely simplified. But what it's allowing us to do is just set the scene for the rest of the webinar, and it helps us the demonstration later on as well. So the first step is that invoices come into the business either by post or maybe by email or maybe even fax, and then they're sent to the accounts team. Now, the accounts team take this invoice and register it against a back office system. Now, this may generate a unique reference number, and sometimes they are physically stamped with a rubber stamp. And then copies are sent around the business to the different cost centres to either be approved or rejected. Now, these invoices are sent around the business either via email and again internal post. They're assigned a budget code and then sent back to the accounts for processing. Once returned, the invoice is registered with the back office system and queued for payment. And then what we tend to find is that paper invoices are then filed away in manual filing cabinets, or sometimes electronic copies are stored away in some sort of network directory. So as you can probably appreciate, that's quite a simplified accounts payable process, but it does help us set the scene going forward in the webinar. So there's a few challenges and issues with the traditional process that not necessarily that we've come up with, but our customers have come up with when we've worked with them on these projects. So the first thing is that what we find, or what our customers find, is that the authorization process can be laborious. It can take a long time. And of course, the knock-on effect of this really is payments can be late. And as we all know, that can also damage supplier relationships. Lost or misfiled invoices. I suppose what we're saying here really is that people can make mistakes. It is easy to lose or misfile an invoice. And what we find is that users we speak to that do deal with traditional processes waste a lot of time searching or creating duplicate invoices. Now, of course, there's also another problem here, because if you are creating a duplicate invoice, there's also a version control issue. How do you know that your staff are working on the correct version of that invoice at any one time? Now, a lot of managers also moan to us about there being no high-level view of invoices received. So an invoice could be sat on someone's desk, it might be on holiday, it might be off sick, it might be buried on a mound of paperwork, and as a manager, it's really difficult to find out where those invoices are in the approval process. Quite often, of course, the knock-on effect is that that process comes to a complete halt. Manual filing cabinets and archive boxes. So if you still use paper-based processes and manual filing cabinets, which I know a lot of our prospects do, there's two issues really with this. One is the cost. It can cost a lot of money to store these documents. Are those filing cabinets taking up valuable space in the office, for example, or perhaps you're even storing paperwork off-site? The other element, or the other impact, sorry, is risk. So what happens if there is a fire? What happens if there is a flood? What we're trying to say with this point really is that with paper processes and manual filing cabinets and archive boxes, there's no real business continuity in place. Now, finding invoices can be difficult as well. And as people dealing with paper process, we do spend a lot of our time looking for documents, and it can be a real headache for the team. And of course, a lot of our days spent doing this, which means our normal job role sometimes gets neglected. And this is something we're seeing more and more nowadays. So mobile workers, the customers are asking us, well, we want management to be able to approve an invoice or reject an invoice or carry out some sort of action when they're out of the office. And of course, with traditional paper-based processes, this becomes very, very difficult. And again, the business impact of this is delays and bottlenecks. So there's a quote here I thought was quite interesting, so I wanted to include it into the webinar, and it's a study by Reuters, which is both managers and staff use 50% of their time searching for information. Now, as a result, they can only use the other half of their day to actually make use of that information. So it really sort of emphasises the serious nature of the problem. Now, if those managers and staff could access information, access documents with a couple of clicks of a button, they can actually spend a lot more time throughout their day carrying out their job role. Okay, so what I'd love to do now is just do a quick poll and get your sort of feelings of what you consider to be your biggest issues within your particular department or your accounts payable process or within your team. So there's a few options up on the screen. Now I'm going to launch this now. If you're able just to click the ones you think, or the one you think is most relevant to you, and what we'll do is we'll come back in 10 seconds or so and just have a quick look at the results and see what everyone's clicked. Okay, just a few more coming in. Okay, well thanks for doing that everyone. I'm just going to show these results actually. Bear with me a second. Okay, so I don't know, hopefully you can see that on your screen. but it looks like the most popular issue and problem with most of you is bottlenecks and delays. Now, if I'm honest, that doesn't really surprise us. That's what I expected. A lot of projects that we work on are because the customer is concerned about bottlenecks in the process and delays in the process. But more importantly, they're worried about the knock-on effect to their own customers and their own suppliers as a result of these delays. So thanks for doing that, everyone. We're just going to hide that poll now. Okay, we'll just go back to the presentation. Okay, so thanks again for doing that, everyone. It's time for me to be quiet and pass you across to Damien, who will take you through a quick demonstration of the DOCU software, again, really relating to the accounts payable process.
Great, thanks Chris, and hi guys. So what we can see here now on my laptop is we've got a demo environment set up, and we're going to show the accounts payable demo with some invoice approval workflow. You can see the users on the left hand side. So today we'll be concerned with Peggy Jenkins, the financial controller, Brian Ford, who's the production and construction manager, Elizabeth Cash, the chief financial officer, and Fred Winner, who's the sales manager. So if we kick off this process and we sign in as Peggy Jenkins. Now Peggy's responsible for capturing the invoices into the system. So we'll just load up the DOCU web browser, and while that's loading we'll simulate a typical kind of batch scan of invoices into the system. So Peggy's gone up to one of the multifunction printers or up to the scanner and kind of scan that batch of invoices into the system. Now DOCU is a web-based application, so you don't have to install anything on your computer, and I'll just take you through the web app now. So we've got document trays, and this simulates the in trays on your desk. So you've got a general basket, and now this is something important, intelligent indexing. We'll go through this in a bit more detail in a moment. Document pool, this is where you search for documents, so this is your search dialog box. Lists is a list of saved searches, so these might be searches you do on a daily basis or maybe a weekly basis. And tasks are actions that you need to perform, so this is part of the workflow which we'll be going through today. And there's a new view in DOCU 6.10, which is the folders view, so this kind of mimics the drawers in a filing cabinet or maybe archive boxes, and you've got the viewer on the right hand side. So hopefully in a few minutes we should see the documents coming into DOCU. So these are the batch of invoices that we've just scanned. And what you can see with the grey progress bars is intelligent indexing. This is the engine that is trying to read information from the documents to try and automate the indexing process for you as much as possible. Hopefully in a few seconds time we shall see the traffic light system. So this is the grey bars turning into either red, amber or green. Green meaning that it's very confident that it's understood and captured the correct index information from the document. Amber is, yeah, maybe I've seen this document a few times before, but I'm not 100% sure. And red would be if it's never seen the document before. Now the important thing to note with intelligent indexing, this isn't like a zonal OCR. This isn't a system that needs to be set up by anyone. Intelligent indexing learns as you store documents. So the more you use it, the more accurate and the better it gets. So if we start off with the first invoice, so this is the rapid transport invoice. And in the viewer, we can zoom in and have a look at the document. And we'll just go through and store this. And you can see each of the index fields has a green tag next to it. This is to say, okay, yeah, I've got the relevant information. I know that this is correct. And on the right hand side, you can click in the index fields and you can see the relevant information highlighted on the right hand side. So you can see rapid transport there. The document number highlighted in yellow on the right hand side is the invoice number, order number. Now we've got a purchase order number, and that order number matches the purchase order number in our system, and the gross amount we can see at the bottom here, that matches the original purchase order. So we know all of this information is correct, and because it's under a certain value, if we click on the store button, normally this will go into an authorization workflow, but because it met all the criteria, it goes straight to book and pay. So we can have a look at the invoice, and it's come straight back to me, Peggy, and we can see activity status is to pay invoice. We confirm the cost center, the budget code responsible for paying that invoice, and we just click on pay and say, okay, we are paying that invoice via bank transfer, and confirm. So that's done. From capture to storage to book and pay, that's a basic invoice processed already. Now, if we go back to the document trays and we'll finish off the rest of the invoices, we'll take the phone bill. So this is the phone wizard invoice. We'll click on store. And again, it's green, so it's recognized everything. You'll notice there's no order number here. So this isn't like a pre-arranged purchase. This is just a regular ad hoc invoice. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to assign that to the relevant cost centers in a moment once we've stored it. Now this is the one that intelligent indexing wasn't 100% sure of. So let's go and have a look and see why. So here we go. It hasn't picked up the company information. Now one of the really useful things about DocuWare is the fact that it can read the contents of the document. So I didn't have to type that in. I just clicked on the highlighted field and DocuWare captured it for me. The order number, we'll just click on, here we go, purchase order, so we'll click on Simon, and the rest of the information is correct. The gross amount we can see here is correct as well, and we'll store that. We can see these fields which are amber. These are the fields that it wasn't 100% sure of. So if you go ahead and store that, next time the intelligent indexing module will be more aware, it will capture that information better, and hopefully next time it will be green. Now this is a slightly larger invoice. This is for, you can see here, Peters Engineering is a manufacturing firm making roller coasters, so you can see here the steel girders and the rails and what have you for the roller coaster, and you can see the value is a lot higher. That will kind of come into part of the workflow process in a moment, but we're happy with all of the index fields, and we'll just go ahead and store. You'll notice as well that there were some barcodes on those documents. Maybe not something for today, but barcodes can help you automate this whole process, so we can kind of reference documents to accounting packages and eliminate a lot of this administration. All right, so now we've indexed all of those documents. Now we have to assign cost centers. So if we start off with the phone bill, now what I'm going to do is, I mentioned Brian Ford and Fred Winner. So Brian Ford is in the manufacturing, or he's the manufacturing manager, and Fred is a sales manager, and they both need to contribute. So you can assign an invoice to multiple cost centers, and we'll just confirm that with a stamp. Now the storage experts one, I just want to try something a little bit different, so I'm going to purposely assign this to the wrong cost center. So I'll assign this again to manufacturing, so that we can show Brian rejecting an invoice. And again, we'll just stamp that. And the final one is the big invoice for the girders and the rails, and again, this is part of the manufacturing budget. So we'll assign that to Brian. So now we've finished assigning the cost centers, the next step is the authorization process. So I mentioned Brian Ford, he is the production manager. So he will need to authorize most of these invoices. One of the good things with DocuWare is you don't have to rely on users and managers proactively checking into their DocuWare web client. DocuWare will send each of the people involved in the process an email notification. So you can see here are 3 invoices with links to the invoice, but we've got a few here, so you might as well just go to all my workflow tasks. But this keeps the momentum of the invoice authorization process going and stops it kind of just languishing in the system. So this was the phone bill. This was the one where Brian is responsible for some of it, and also Fred is responsible for some of it too. So we can go in and approve, and we can approve a certain amount. So where you've got multiple departments assigning multiple budget codes, kind of contributing to one invoice, you can authorize a certain amount of that invoice. Now, I mentioned this one was the one I was going to reject, so I'll go ahead and reject. So you've got the kind of red warning rejection stamp, and you can type in some information that will appear on the stamp. So on this one, I'm just going to leave it as not my cost center, and we can just stamp that. Now this is the pretty big invoice. This is the one for over $1 million. So there is a secondary value-based workflow process going on in the background here. So anything over $5,000 then needs to go through a second tier of authorization. But from Brian's level, he's happy with that. So we'll just go ahead and approve the full amount and stamp it. So now all of my tasks are completed. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sign back in as Peggy Jenkins. Normally it would be kind of Fred Winner next and Elizabeth Cash, but I wanted to show you something. As a workflow controller, Peggy can see her own tasks. So this is the one where Brian Ford rejected it, and Peggy needs to reassign it to a new cost center. But also we've got monitor tasks here. So this is where Peggy can, as a workflow controller, can see every document in the workflow or in a workflow process. So it means that Peggy can see if something's come to a halt or something's stopped, and so we can see who it's with. So this is the large invoice requiring an extra level of authorization, and this is with Elizabeth Cash. So let's say Elizabeth was on holiday, we can reassign that task to another user. We can see obviously this is the phone bill where Fred needs to authorize the remaining $350 whatever of the invoice. I just wanted to show you that so that you can see that Peggy can keep an eye on all of the things that are happening within the workflow process. So what I'll do is I'll just finish off the final authorization task. So I'll sign in as Fred. Again, Fred will have received an email notification, but we've already seen that with Brian, so we'll just open up the web client, go to tasks, and authorize the remaining $357. So that's done, and now we'll log in as Elizabeth. And provide that second level of authorization for the large invoice for the kind of girders and rails and what have you. So this gives Elizabeth a chance just to check the amounts, the products, maybe make sure these items have been delivered, that they match the original purchase order. But yeah, she's obviously a deal of this size, she's been aware of this and just need to approve that. And that's it. So the approval workflow is complete. All that remains is for Peggy to book and pay those invoices. We just sign in as Peggy. And we can see now those remaining invoices, the phone wizard bill, so the phone bill's there, and we can see the stamps showing each of the actions. and the US deal invoices are the big one that's gone through the 2 layers of authorization approval. So we'll just go into phone bill, confirm the cost centers are correct, book it into the account system, and confirm that we are paying that via bank transfer. And we can go into the US deal invoice, confirm that's booked in, and again finish paying that by bank transfer. So that's everything. That's the whole invoice workflow approval process completed, from scanning them in, capturing, indexing, approval, booking and paying the invoice. Now, one of the other tasks that Peggy might be involved with as the finance controller is queries. So people will phone up and ask if we've received an invoice or whether it's been paid. So this is where we can use the document pool to search through the documents. So we could maybe search for all the invoices. So in a couple of clicks, we can see a list of all the invoices that have been indexed. We can go back and maybe narrow that down. So we want to have a look at the phone bills, because obviously you might have hundreds of documents in here, so we can narrow the search criteria. And again, each of the stamps shows an action on that document. There's also a really useful feature, an advanced search feature called full text search. So DocuWare reads all of the information in all of these documents. So let's say someone phones up and says, we've sent you a bunch of girders and we wanted to just see if you've received them, if you paid our invoice. So in this situation, we can just type in a word that might appear in these documents. And here we can see the full story. So we can see the order that's gone out and the delivery note that's come in. Now we've completed the invoice approval workflow. I know it's just a small part of DocuWare, so next month we will be doing a short web session, not a presentation, just a quick 10-15 minute web demo on some of the other features in DocuWare, so hopefully you can join us for that, and we'll be sending out some more information via email. But I'll hand back to Chris and he can take you through the rest of the presentation.
Great, thanks Damien. I thought that was useful. I think as Damien said there, we've really just scratched the surface of DocuWare, so we will be doing other sessions on things like capturing information and full search and retrieval. So what I'd like to touch on now is just some of the benefits that some of our customers have seen when they've implemented DocuWare, especially into the accounts payable process. So the first one, avoid late payments. So we'd like to think with the electronic workflow and the email notifications that Damien has just demoed, you get to really push that invoice through the approval process. Of course, this speeds up the invoice turnaround time and you get to avoid those late payments. Find invoices quickly and easily. So no longer do staff have to run around an office looking through filing cabinets or archive boxes to dig out these invoices. Just within a couple of clicks, maybe via some of the functionalities such as the keyword search you just saw or the save searches, documents can be found very, very quickly. Removal of physical storage. So with DocuWare, you no longer need physical filing cabinets or to store documents in paper form. With DocuWare, you can store everything electronically, either within your network or within our secure cloud offering, which is hosted in Dublin. Increased productivity and morale. Now we know it is stressful and frustrating sometimes when we speak to team members about this, because they spend so much time storing documents or searching for documents that they don't actually do as much of their job role as they should do throughout the day. So you get to increase productivity, and which has the other knock-on effect of actually increasing their morale as well. And identify bottlenecks. As a manager, you really get to look at the process now proactively, as opposed to reacting to things or firefighting all the time. So you get to identify those bottlenecks early and then correct them. And mobile integration. More and more staff are working from home. More and more companies that we speak to want their staff to be able to access this information on the move, whether they're on holiday, maybe they're off sick, maybe they're a sales guy out on appointments. To access this information, but more importantly, carry out tasks or actions regarding to these documents. Now with iOS apps and Android apps and the window apps that we have for our phones and tablets, you can do that with DocuWare remotely as well. So if you did come to look at a project like this with us, we've got a general sort of rule of thumb how we tend to work on document management projects. And the first step really is conference call or meeting. Now here we really just want to get an idea of what you want to achieve out of the project. What are your main aims? What's the end goal? You know, what departments do you want to be involved? And the next step is to try and include stakeholders as well. So maybe we can get team members involved, heads of departments, maybe directors, maybe some of your colleagues in IT. And the idea with this stage is to ensure that the information we've gathered from the conference call or gathered from the meeting is correct and everyone has a real idea of what we're looking to achieve. We then go away and create a tailored demonstration for you. And the idea behind the demo is just to make sure that the software is catering for the requirements and catering for the processes we previously discussed. And then all being well, we carry out a scoping day. So this is where the project kicks off really. One of the engineers will come to site and we technically lay out how DocuWare is going to achieve the requirements and the points that we've previously discussed in the previous stages. Now a lot of customers after the scoping day do tend just to go ahead and order DocuWare. However, if you want us to go to the next step, maybe within your business you have to create an additional business case, and we can work with you to do this. So we're coming towards the end of our webinar now, so I thought I'd summarise with a couple of points. So I think the first thing to realise is that document management doesn't have to be daunting. We've got a lot of experience here at AMS and a lot of resource, and if you want us to, we can hold your hand throughout the entire process. Now DocuWare as a product is extremely mature. It's one of those products that's been around for nearly 30 years and it has been developed upon customer demand. And we also believe you can make a real difference to the accounts payable process, because by managing the movement of the invoice through each step, you can really streamline that accounts payable workflow. You can also improve customer service, and you get the chance to increase productivity as well. Staff are no longer having to search for these documents, taking a long time to search for these documents, or taking a long time to store these documents, so they can carry out more productive tasks throughout the day. Well, I hope you found that useful, and I appreciate everyone's time. I think what we'll do now is go through some questions that we've received. What we'll do while we're going through those questions is I've got an additional slide here with some additional resources. So if you do want to get in contact, please feel free, and there's a website up there. Also, you can contact us on social media as well. If you do have an account manager or know their name, then feel free to give them a call if you want to discuss anything. But I think we'll go through some of the questions we've got, Damien.
Yeah, sure. Let's kind of load up the questions side.
Okay, bear with us for a second. We're just going to open these up.
Sorry, the questions dialog box is quite small. I'm just going to drag it out so we can have a look. Okay, so we've got a question here. Can you capture line item descriptions and match those to a PO? It's not native in DocuWare capturing line items, but we can capture information from an invoice and kind of match it to information in the back-end system. So if you had a financial package, we could maybe verify the value of an item using an add-on module. So yes, it is possible. It's not part of the native DocuWare package, but if you were interested in this kind of thing, then one of our engineers can kind of work out what you're trying to achieve, how it would work in your environment, and maybe put together some options for you. So here we go, another one. So do you also have a reporting tool included within DocuWare? Well, I think the way DocuWare works is you use searches. So you can search for say, documents that are past a due date. So if you're looking for outstanding invoices, you could create a report based on invoices that were past 30 days due or something like that. So I wouldn't say it's so much a reporting tool, but there are the saved searches and searching by criteria within the documents. You can create a report to give the information you're looking for. Right, so this one's for you, Chris. We receive a lot of our invoices via email. How would we save those into DocuWare?
Yeah, okay, so DocuWare has an additional module called an Outlook connector. So you can actually, from within your Outlook, you can have the email or the invoice come in, and you can right-click from there or use the DocuWare toolbar at the top and automatically save those invoices into DocuWare. So yeah, very quick and easy.
Okay, well, I'll probably take the next one. So this is about if we scan a large batch of invoices and each invoice might have multiple pages, how would the system handle that? Now, we kind of touched on this subject and we mentioned barcodes. Well, we can use separator pages or barcodes. So when we did the scan batch earlier, just separated everything on a single page basis. You saw those 4 invoices that were scanned as a batch became 4 pages and 4 individual documents. If you have multiple pages per invoice, you can use a separator page or a barcode, and using barcodes there's a really good opportunity to automate that whole process, but that's kind of another topic, and I think that's something we'll cover in one of our web sessions hopefully in the next couple of months.
We've got an additional question here from Angus. Can you also do this for HR? Yes, we can. We work on a lot of projects with human resources. Each case is slightly different, but it's very good at managing personnel records, for example, and things like appraisals or reviews, carrying out workflow actions around those as well. So Angus, we can talk through that in more detail with you after the webinar, if that's helpful.
Yeah, it might actually be helpful to show Angus the we mentioned earlier that DocuWare is particularly relevant for accounts and finance teams, but also HR. And one of the reasons is there's a really neat feature in DocuWare for employee onboarding.
Yeah.
So through web forms, you can automatically create starter packs and kick into workflows and stuff like that. So yeah, if that's something you're interested in, maybe we can arrange like a personalized web session for you and show you that functionality.
Sorry, Dan, we've got another question here from Jamie.
Okay.
How is the solution priced?
Oh, right, so it kind of depends. We've got 3 different models with DocuWare. You can have DocuWare installed in your network, you can have it as a cloud service, or you can have it as a hybrid service. So you can have it as a cloud service, but with your data and information stored in your network. So the question is, it kind of depends on what your preference is. If you were interested in pricing, maybe we could get some information from you, find out what your preferences are, and give you some expectations around that. But I'm sure one of the guys can sort that out with you. Here we go. So there's another question here. Is there any way to edit or add notes to an invoice? We've got something called, you can edit documents, and we also have something called version control. So you can create new versions of a document so that it protects the originality of the first copy, and also means that users know which version that they're working on, if you had like a collaborative process for creating documents. And there's also annotations, so you can create sticky notes, highlight certain areas, and add kind of text onto a document for notes if you are passing it through the workflow process. We do have a few more questions, but I think we were going to try and wrap this up. So if we haven't got to your question, really sorry, we will get back to you personally and give you that information. But I think if we are ready to wrap this up.
Brilliant. Yep. Thanks for your time, everyone. I hope you found that useful. And if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us. And perhaps we'll see you on the next one.